All right, let's get right into it. What if I told you that the story you learned about the East India Company, the one about polite merchants trading spices, what if I told you that's all just a cover story for something much, much darker?
Yeah, we've all heard this one, right? It's the simple, clean version they teach you in school. A bunch of English businessmen just wanted to sail east and trade for some exotic goods. Sounds harmless enough.
Well, it turns out that's probably one of the biggest lies in history. The truth is, the company that was born on December 31st, 1600, was never just a trading group. From its very first breath, it was designed to be a bloody army. So you have to ask, how does that even happen? How does a business plan for a trading company become a blueprint for total destruction? Well, it's because the plan for conquest, it was written right into their founding documents from day one. This was never just business. Just look at the official definition. When the Queen of England gave them their royal charter, she wasn't just handing them a business license. Oh no, she was giving a private company the powers of a nation state, the power to build armies, the power to wage war, and the power to take whatever they wanted. To really get this, we have to go back in time. Picture a freezing night in London, December 1600. The city is choking on a thick, icy fog. The River Thames is literally turning to ice, but inside a smoky, candlelit room, 218 of the richest men in England are gathered, and they're about to ignite a fire of pure, world-changing greed. And what were they so obsessed with? Pepper. Yeah, black pepper. To us, it's just a simple kitchen spice. But back then, in a world with no refrigeration, spices like pepper were the only way to keep meat from rotting through the winter. It was the key to survival. And that made a handful of peppercorns more valuable than gold, and certainly more valuable than a human life. But there was a huge problem. The Portuguese and the Dutch, they were the kings of the sea. They had a total lock on the spice trade. So this guy, Sir Thomas Smythe, a seriously ambitious and ruthless man, he basically slams his fist on the table and says, "We have to seize what is ours. We have to slice through the sea and get that treasure, or we're all gonna rot and die right here." This wasn't a business proposal. It was a declaration of war. And that very night, they put their money where their mouth was. They pulled together over 68,000 pounds. Now you have to understand, in the 1600s, that was an absolutely insane amount of money. It was enough to fund entire armies. That night, a monster fueled by greed was born. Now these merchants, they were smart. They knew they couldn't just go sailing around the world, killing and conquering. That would be piracy. No, they needed legal cover. They needed an official document that would make any crime they committed legal. And only one person in England could give them that kind of power: Queen Elizabeth I. And the speed at which this happened is just breathtaking. Think about it. 1 minute they're having a secret meeting, and just a few weeks later, on the very last day of the century, December 31st, 1600, the Queen signs the Royal Charter. A secret plot had become an officially sanctioned global mission. But what was actually hidden inside this official piece of paper? Well, yeah, it gave them a 15-year monopoly on trade, but it also gave them the right to raise a private army, the right to build forts, the right to wage war, and get this, the right to kill anyone who interfered with their profits. This wasn't a charter, it was a license to kill. So in February 1601, the company's first 4 ships set sail. They were captained by a guy named James Lancaster, a hardened sailor known as a ruthless sea wolf. And for the men on those ships, saying goodbye to their families on the dock, they knew this was a gamble with death. And the sea did not disappoint. The Atlantic threw monster waves at them. And then the real horror began: scurvy. Men literally rotted from the inside out, their teeth falling from their gums. Every single morning, more bodies were just silently tossed overboard into the ocean. By the time they reached the Spice Islands, half of the entire crew was dead. But did the investors back in London care about the human cost? Not one bit. Because when the surviving ships limped back to England, loaded to the brim with spices, the profit was an unbelievable 300%. Their first bloody gamble had paid off big time, and now they had a real taste for blood. There was just one problem. In the Spice Islands of Indonesia, they ran headfirst into a rival that was richer, stronger, and somehow even more ruthless than they were: the Dutch East India Company. And suddenly, the sweet smell of cloves and nutmeg was replaced by the stench of gunpowder and blood.
The English and the Dutch started fighting these brutal, vicious little battles at sea, slitting throats, setting ships on fire. It was clear pretty fast that this wasn't about trade anymore. It was all-out war. The English merchants, sitting in their cold offices back in London, they looked at the maps, they looked at the numbers, and they faced a hard truth. They couldn't beat the Dutch in a straight-up fight. So they did what any ruthless corporation would do. They decided to pivot. They needed a new plan, a new base where they could get something valuable to trade for those spices. So you can just imagine them unrolling their maps, looking for the next opportunity. The Spice Islands were too hot, too dangerous, so where do you go? Where on earth is there another prize for the taking? And then their fingers landed on a place known across the world only in myths and legends, a land they called Hindustan, the Mughal Empire. A place where thrones were supposedly made of solid gold and the markets were overflowing with silks and cotton. That was the new target. But here's the twist. When their ships finally reached the shores of India, they found out the powerful Mughal Empire wasn't their first problem. Another enemy, an older, more familiar European enemy, had been standing guard at the gates for 100 years, ready to kill any newcomer who tried to get in. So the question is, who was it?